The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Tom Miller's apartment, casting gentle shadows across his prized collection of houseplants. As Earth's chosen diplomat for first contact, he had spent weeks making sure everything was perfect for this historic meeting. The apartment was clean, refreshments were prepared, and his plants were freshly watered and pruned. What Tom didn't know was that his ordinary apartment was about to cause an interstellar incident. The alien delegation arrived precisely on time, their shuttle landing on the designated rooftop platform. 3 representatives of the Galactic Council stepped out, tall, blue-skinned beings with 4 arms and large, silvery eyes. Ambassador Kree led the group, followed by their science officer Mop and security chief Rix. "Welcome to Earth," Tom said with a warm smile, bowing slightly. "Please come inside." The aliens followed him into the elevator, their movements careful and precise. Tom noticed they kept checking their environmental sensors, probably making sure the air was safe for them to breathe. Standard procedure, he thought. Everything was going perfectly until they entered his living room. Ambassador Kree stopped so suddenly that Mop walked right into their back. All 3 aliens stared at the corner of the room, their silver eyes growing wider by the second. Their skin, normally a calm blue, began shifting to a pale green, a sign Tom would later learn meant extreme distress. Is that what I think it is?" Kree whispered, pointing with one of their 4 arms at Tom's pride and joy. A 6-foot-tall fiddle-leaf fig tree. "Oh, that's just my fiddle-leaf fig," Tom said cheerfully. "I've had her for 3 years now. Bit tricky to keep happy, but everyone stay completely still," Rix, the security chief, shouted. In a flash, they had pulled out some sort of scanning device. "By the eternal stars, it is a razor-leaf strangler. How did it get here? Why hasn't it attacked?" Tom blinked in confusion. "Attack? No, it's just a houseplant. Look." He started walking toward the plant. "Stop!" All 3 aliens screamed at once. But Tom was already at the plant. He gently touched one of its large violin-shaped leaves. "See, totally harmless. Would you like to see my other plants? I had a lovely collection of succulents in the kitchen window." Ambassador Kree swayed slightly, looking like they might faint. "Other plants? There are more." "Oh yes," Tom said enthusiastically. "I have about 20 different species. It's quite a modest collection compared to some people. My neighbor has over 50 plants in her apartment." The aliens huddled together, whispering frantically in their own language. Tom caught words like madness and impossible being repeated several times. Finally, Kree turned back to Tom. "Mr. Miller, are you aware that this species is classified as a Class 4 biological hazard on 14 different worlds? Its cousins in the wild can strip the flesh from a full-grown Graxian beast in under 3 minutes." "Really?" Tom looked at his fiddle-leaf fig with new interest. "Well, Earth plants can be pretty tough, I suppose. But we've been growing them in our homes for thousands of years. They're perfectly safe. Here, watch this." Before anyone could stop him, Tom picked up his watering can and began giving the plant its weekly drink. The aliens pressed themselves against the far wall, clearly expecting the plant to suddenly come alive and attack. When nothing happened except the soft sound of water being absorbed by soil, Mop pulled out a different scanner and began taking readings. This is unprecedented," they muttered. "The plant has been modified somehow. Its natural defense mechanisms are dormant. How did you achieve this?" Tom shrugged. "Selective breeding, I guess. People just kept growing the ones that worked best indoors. It's not really my area of expertise. I just like having some green around the house. Makes the place feel more like home, you know." The aliens didn't know. In fact, as they stood there watching a human casually interact with what they considered a deadly predator, they realized they might not know nearly as much about humans as they thought they did. And they hadn't even seen the cactus collection yet. The Galactic Council's emergency meeting room buzzed with nervous energy. Dozens of screens showed images from human homes across the globe, each one more terrifying than the last. Ambassador Cree stood at the front, pointing at various pictures with trembling hands. As you can see, they said to the assembled alien officials, the situation is worse than we imagined. Humans don't just keep one or two deadly specimens, they fill their living spaces with them. The room erupted in gasps as Cree switched to the next image. A simple kitchen windowsill containing a row of small cacti. These, Cree explained, are what humans call succulents and cacti. They keep dozens of these poison-spined assassins on display, often at eye level where anyone could fall into them. Officer Mop stepped forward with their research notes. It gets worse. Look at this. They pulled up a video of a human garden center. They have entire buildings dedicated to selling these creatures. Anyone can walk in and purchase them. They even have a sales section where the most dangerous ones are sold at reduced prices. The council members watched in horror as the video showed a young human child being allowed to select a small cactus, the parents actually encouraging this clearly dangerous behavior. But surely there must be safety protocols, asked one of the council members. Special containment units, warning signs. That's the most baffling part. Rix, the security chief, chimed in. They keep them in something called decorative pots, simple ceramic containers. Some don't even have drainage holes. And look at this. The screen changed to show a Venus flytrap sitting on someone's desk. This specimen is called a Venus flytrap. It's a microfauna devourer that humans keep as pets. They actually feed it. Rix's voice rose in disbelief. And they post videos of the feeding process on something called TikTok for entertainment. The council chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief. One member fainted when they showed footage of a human pruning their roses without wearing protective armor. We've also discovered something deeply disturbing, Mop added, pulling up new data. Humans give these creatures names. They talk to them. They become emotionally attached to them. When a plant dies, they often express genuine sadness. The head of the council raised all four hands for silence. What about the humans' own safety records? Surely their medical facilities must be overwhelmed with plant-related injuries. Cree shuffled uncomfortably. That's the strange part. According to their medical records, serious injuries from houseplants are extremely rare. Most plant-related medical issues come from humans accidentally eating wild plants they shouldn't, or having mild allergic reactions to pollen. Impossible, someone shouted from the back. These are Class 4 biological hazards. Apparently, Mop said, checking their notes. Humans have been systematically breeding these plants for thousands of years, selecting for traits that make them more decorative and less deadly. They call it domestication. The council members stared at the screens, watching videos of humans casually watering their plants, trimming leaves, and even propagating new ones from cuttings. There's one more thing, Rix added hesitantly. We've discovered something called plant swaps, where humans gather to trade these specimens with each other. They bring their most dangerous plants to public spaces and exchange them, often throwing in extra cuttings for free. The head of the council sank back in their chair, all four hands covering their face. So let me summarize. Humans take deadly flora from their Deathworld, breed them to be prettier, keep them in their homes, give them names, talk to them, trade them like collectibles, and somehow don't die in massive numbers. Correct, Cree confirmed. And they think we are strange for being concerned. The council chamber fell silent as everyone contemplated this new information about their galactic neighbors. Finally, the council head spoke again. I believe we need to seriously reconsider our initial assessment of human capabilities. Any species that can turn deadly predatory flora into decorative items is either brilliantly adaptable or completely insane. Or both, Mop added quietly. Probably both. Dr. James Wilson stood in his university greenhouse, surrounded by dozens of alien scientists who kept flinching every time a leaf moved in the breeze. He had been trying for the past hour to explain Earth's plant biology to the Galactic Council's science team, but things weren't going well. "So you're telling us," said lead researcher Mop, hiding behind their digital tablet, "that you actually breed these things to be more colorful, even though bright colors in nature usually mean extremely deadly." "Well, yes," James replied, gesturing to a row of bright purple orchids. "We select for attractive features, bigger flowers, interesting patterns, unusual colors. They're completely harmless." The alien shuffled backward as one when he reached out to touch an orchid petal. "But why?" asked another scientist, their skin turning a pale green with anxiety. "Why make deadly things more appealing? That goes against all logical survival instincts." James rubbed his forehead. He hadn't expected explaining houseplants to be this difficult. "Look, let me show you something really interesting." He walked over to a small table where several tiny trees grew in shallow pots. The alien scientists pressed themselves against the far wall. "These are bonsai trees," James explained proudly. "We take regular trees and carefully trim and shape them to stay small. Some of these are over 50 years old." There was a long moment of silence. "You," Mop's voice cracked, "you take giant organisms and deliberately stunt their growth for aesthetic purposes." "Yes, it's a beautiful art form," James said enthusiastically. "This one here is actually from a species that normally grows to be 30 meters tall." Three alien scientists promptly fainted. Mop frantically typed notes into their tablet. "So humans not only keep predatory flora as pets, they also systematically torture larger specimens by trapping them in tiny containers and preventing their natural growth." "What? No, that's not what bonsai is at all," James protested. "We carefully tend to them. They're perfectly healthy. Here, let me show you how we trim them." The remaining conscious aliens screamed in terror as James picked up a small pair of scissors. "Put down, he a kidding tool," shouted one of the security officers who had been watching from the door. "Step away from THE Minai Zd monster." James set down the scissors with a sigh. "Look, maybe we should try a different approach. Let's talk about how plants help clean our air and provide oxygen." "They? What?" Mop asked weakly. "Sure. Many of our houseplants help filter toxins from the air. They convert carbon dioxide into oxygen through photosynthesis. Some studies show they might even help reduce stress and improve mental health." The alien stared at him in complete disbelief. "You're saying," Mop clarified slowly, "that you keep these things in your homes because they clean your air and make you feel better?" "Exactly," James said brightly. "They're like natural air purifiers. Plus, caring for them can be very relaxing." "Relaxing," repeated an alien scientist faintly. "They find caring for deadly Deathworld flora relaxing." James walked over to a shelf of small potted plants. "Here, let me show you something really cool. These are called air plants. They don't even need soil to grow." This proved too much for the remaining alien scientists. The last thing James heard before they all fled the greenhouse was Mop shouting something about updating humanity's danger classification level. Standing alone among his beloved plants, James shook his head. "Maybe I should have waited to tell them about carnivorous plants," he mused, glancing at his collection of Venus flytraps and pitcher plants in the corner. "And definitely shouldn't mention the giant corpse flower at the botanical garden." A small leaf from one of his potted ferns brushed against his arm in the breeze, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear alien scientists screaming about surprise attacks. James gave the fern a gentle pat. "Don't worry," he told it. "They'll come around eventually. Though maybe we'll hold off on showing them the redwood forests for now." The Earth Embassy's main hall was quiet that afternoon, except for the gentle humming of air filters and the soft clicking of computer keyboards. 6 large snake plants stood like green sentinels along the walls, their tall leaves reaching toward the ceiling. The plants had been there for years, quietly cleaning the air and adding a touch of Earth's nature to the sterile diplomatic building. That peace was about to be shattered by the best intentions of an alien visitor. Pod, a junior diplomat from the Galactic Council, had been watching these plants for days. Every morning, they observed the human staff walking casually past these deadly specimens. Pod had done their research. These were clearly Dracana trifasciata, known on 14 worlds as the serpent's tongue, a plant so dangerous it had once been used as a biological weapon. And the humans were just letting them grow, right there, in the open. Pod couldn't sleep at night, knowing these innocent humans were in danger. Yes, the Council had issued warnings about not interfering with Earth's unique relationship with deadly flora, but surely they would make an exception to save lives. Making their decision, Pod waited until the lunch break when most staff members were away. Then, moving with the speed that had made them a champion in their academy's emergency response training, Pod pulled out their standard-issue plant neutralizer, a device designed to rapidly dehydrate dangerous vegetation. The first snake plant withered and collapsed within seconds. Pod moved quickly to the next one, their heart racing with the thrill of heroic action. 2 more plants crumbled into dry husks. Pod was starting on the 4th when they heard a gasp behind them. "What are you doing?" Pod turned to see Katie, one of the human receptionists, staring in horror at the destroyed plants. Pod stood proudly, expecting gratitude for their brave deed. "I have saved you," Pod announced. "These deadly creatures can no longer threaten your safety." Katie's face went through several expressions, none of them looking particularly grateful. "Those were our office plants. They've been here for 10 years. Do you know how long it took to get them that tall?" Pod's antenna drooped in confusion. "But they are serpent's tongue plants, Class 3 biological hazards, known for their deadly properties on multiple worlds." By now, other staff members had returned from lunch. They gathered around the fallen plants, some looking close to tears. "That one was named Herbert," someone in the back said sadly. "He was here longer than I was." "You named them?" Pod asked weakly. "Of course we named them," Katie said, kneeling beside one of the dried husks. "They were like part of the team. Linda even put little Christmas decorations on them during the holidays." Pod's skin began to shift from its normal blue to an embarrassed purple. But they're dangerous plants. "From your Deathworld. I was protecting you." Mark, the embassy's senior diplomat, stepped forward. He looked at the destroyed plants, then at the increasingly distressed alien. "Pod," he said gently, "I understand you were trying to help. But on Earth, these plants aren't dangerous. They're friends. They clean our air, brighten our spaces, and yes, we get attached to them. Destroying them isn't protecting us. It's like..." He searched for a comparison the alien might understand. "It's like destroying someone's atmospheric processor because you think it makes too much noise." Pod's antenna drooped even lower. "You mean, these were emotional support atmospheric processors?" "Something like that," Mark said, trying not to smile despite the situation. "Very emotional, very supported, and now very dead." I am deeply sorry," Pod whispered. "I did not understand. Can they be saved?" Katie stood up, brushing soil from her hands. "These ones are gone, but snake plants are pretty tough. We can probably propagate new ones from any surviving leaves." She paused, looking thoughtful. "Actually, Pod, would you like to help us grow new ones? It might help you understand why we keep them." Pod's antenna perked up slightly. "You would trust me with this task? After what I did?" "Of course," Katie said. "Just promise not to save us from any more plants." "I promise," Pod said solemnly. "Though perhaps we should start with something smaller. Those tiny green things in the break room, perhaps." "The succulents." Katie laughed. "Sure, we can start there. Just don't tell the Council. I hear they think those are poison-spined assassins." Lisa Brown had fought taking the alien delegation to Happy Plant Home. Her local garden center would help them understand Earth's plant culture better. 5 minutes after arriving, She realized she had made a terrible mistake. "EVURIBODYGE-1," shouted Rix, the security chief, as they entered the succulent section. "These specimens aren't even in containment fields." The Saturday morning shoppers paused their browsing to stare at the 3 aliens lying flat on the floor. Lisa tried to pretend this was perfectly normal behavior while helping an elderly lady reach past them for a small cactus. "Please remain calm," Ambassador Cree called out from their position behind a display of decorative pots. "We are containing a level 5 biological hazard situation. It's the spring sale," Lisa explained to the confused customers. They're very excited about the prices. Mop, the science officer, had their scanner out and was taking rapid readings of everything in sight. "This is unprecedented. They have specimens from every continent. Desert killers next to tropical stranglers. And they're all on sale." Lisa suggested helpfully. "Yes, they're having a buy one get one free deal on pothos plants. THEY are encouraging people to take multiple specimens." Mop's voice rose to a squeak. Just then, a garden center employee approached with a spray bottle to mist the ferns. All 3 aliens screamed in unison. "Chemical warfare." Rix tried to tackle the employee, but Lisa managed to step between them. "It's just water," she explained quickly. "The plants need water to stay healthy." You deliberately keep them strong?" Cree asked weakly. Before Lisa could respond, a young mother walked by with her small child, who was happily hugging a newly purchased snake plant. The aliens watched in horror as the child petted the leaves. "This is barbaric," Cree declared. "They're indoctrinating their young." The situation got worse when they reached the carnivorous plant section. Mop actually fainted at the sight of a Venus flytrap catching a fly, and Rix tried to rescue the insect with a pair of tweezers before Lisa stopped them. "But it's eating live prey," Rix protested. "In public. That's what they're supposed to do," Lisa explained patiently. "Look, there's even a care guide that explains how to feed them." This proved too much for Cree, who had to sit down among the peace lilies to recover. Unfortunately, this led to the discovery that some plants moved when touched. THYRE mobile. Cree jumped up so fast, they knocked over a display of prayer plants. "This specimens heavy tu novi." The garden center manager finally came over to investigate the commotion. She found 3 aliens barricaded behind bags of potting soil, a scattered display of prayer plants, and Lisa trying to explain that some plants just like to follow the sun. Perhaps, Lisa suggested diplomatically, we should skip the exotic plant room for today. "There's no or," all 3 aliens asked in horror. "Tell me," Mop asked, clutching their scanner like a shield, "do all humans visit these plant dispensaries?" "Oh yes," Lisa said. "Some people come every week. My mother has a rewards card." "A rewards program?" Cree looked faint again. "For collecting dangerous specimens. Would you like one?" The manager offered helpfully. "We're giving double points on hanging baskets this month." The aliens huddled together, whispering frantically. Lisa caught phrases like organized plant distribution network and systematic cultivation of dangerous species. Finally, Cree turned to Lisa. "We believe we have seen enough for today. Though, one question. What is that large building next door with the word forest on it?" "Oh, that's a garden supply store," Lisa explained. "They sell things to help plants grow better." There was a moment of silence. "You mean to tell us," Mop said slowly, "the humans have entire stores dedicated to making these creatures stronger?" Lisa looked at the trembling aliens and decided that explaining fertilizer could wait for another day. "Maybe we should go get coffee instead," she suggested. "Though perhaps we should skip the part about coffee being made from plant beans." Professor Mary Thompson stood in her university laboratory, facing a room full of skeptical alien scientists. Behind her, a massive wall of plants created a living backdrop. Pothos vines cascaded down shelves, spider plants stretched their babies toward the ground, and a massive monstera spread its leaves like green solar panels. Today, she announced, we're going to understand why humans and plants work so well together. The alien scientists shifted nervously in their seats. After the garden center incident last week, the Galactic Council had demanded a scientific explanation for humanity's strange plant-keeping habits. Let's start with something simple, Mary said, picking up a small potted herb. This is basil. We grow it in our kitchens, use it in our food, and you eat them too, shouted one horrified scientist. Mary took a deep breath. Yes, we eat some plants. In fact, most of our food comes from plants. But that's not the point I'm trying to make today. She placed the basil down and pulled up a large diagram on the screen behind her. It showed the oxygen cycle between plants and humans. Look at this, she said. Every time we breathe out, we release carbon dioxide. Our plants take this carbon dioxide and, through photosynthesis, turn it into oxygen. We literally help each other survive. The alien scientists leaned forward, their fear momentarily forgotten in the face of scientific curiosity. You mean, said lead researcher Mop, you've achieved a symbiotic relationship with your world's flora. Exactly. Mary smiled. We didn't tame these plants. We grew together, evolved together. Earth's plants aren't trying to kill us. Most of them just want to grow and photosynthesize. She walked over to an air quality monitor. Watch this. She turned it on, showing the room's perfect air quality. These plants clean our air. They remove toxins. Some can even help reduce stress and improve our mental health. Emotional benefits, asked another scientist, from potentially deadly specimens. They're not deadly to us, Mary explained patiently. Think about it. Humans evolved on Earth alongside these plants. We're built to coexist with them. What seems dangerous to you is normal for us. She gestured to a small potted tree. This is a direct descendant of plants that lived millions of years ago. Our ancestors learned to live with their ancestors. Over time, we learned which plants could help us and which to avoid. The aliens began taking notes furiously. But what about the spines? The toxins? Someone asked. Mary picked up a small cactus. Several aliens gasped. These adaptations weren't developed to hurt us. They were developed to help the plants survive in harsh conditions. The spines protect from animals and help provide shade. The toxins deter insects. She placed the cactus in front of a microscope camera, projecting a magnified image of its surface structure. Look at how beautifully adapted it is to survive in the desert. Humans didn't make it dangerous or safe. We just learned to appreciate its amazing survival strategies. The room was silent as the aliens studied the image. So, Mop said slowly, when humans keep plants in their homes, we're not keeping dangerous pets, Mary finished. We're sharing our space with fellow Earth organisms that help us live better lives. They clean our air, provide our food, and yes, make our homes more beautiful. She walked back to her wall of plants. Every plant in this room has a different story of how it evolved alongside us. Some learned to climb trees in rainforests. Others adapted to grow in the cracks of rocks. Each one is a testament to life's amazing ability to find a way to thrive. The alien scientists were quiet for a long moment. Finally, one raised their hand. Does this mean, they asked hesitantly, that humans are not insane for keeping plants? Mary laughed. Oh no, some of us are definitely a bit plant crazy. Wait until you hear about people who talk to their plants or play music for them. They do shade. Perhaps, Mary said quickly, we should save the topic of plant communication for another day. Shall we look at how plants help filter water instead? As she turned to set up the next demonstration, she heard Mop whisper to another scientist, make a note. Humans may be less insane than previously thought, but further research is needed. 1 month after the first plant-related diplomatic incident, Ambassador Kree stood nervously in front of the Galactic Council, a small potted succulent sitting on the podium before them. The council chamber was packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all eager to hear the final report on humanity's strange relationship with Earth's flora. Distinguished members of the council, Kree began, trying not to flinch when their succulent swayed slightly in the air conditioning. I stand before you today to present our revised assessment of human capabilities and their unique approach to their planet's vegetation. The room fell silent, except for one alien in the back who was still having nervous hiccups from watching Kree voluntarily stand next to a plant. First, Kree continued, we must upgrade humanity's danger management classification by several levels. Any species that can turn deadly flora into decorative items clearly possesses capabilities we had not previously understood. MOP stepped forward with their final research report. Our studies show that humans have not merely survived their world's hostile plant life. They have developed a complex, symbiotic relationship with it. They grow these specimens for food, medicine, air purification, and MOP checked their notes, something called Instagram aesthetics. A murmur ran through the crowd. Furthermore, Kree added, gesturing to their small succulent, I must admit that after careful study and personal experience, these plants are not quite as dangerous as we initially believed. This specimen, which I have named Spike, has been in my care for 2 weeks and has not once attempted to attack me. Several council members gasped at Kree's use of a personal name for a plant. Someone in the back fainted. The humans call this becoming a plant parent. Kree explained, their skin flushing a slight purple with embarrassment. I am told this emotional attachment is normal, though I still find it somewhat disturbing how quickly it happened. Rix, the security chief, stepped forward next. Our threat assessment team has been forced to completely revise their understanding of human resilience. They not only survive alongside these organisms, they actively seek out new varieties. They have entire buildings dedicated to plant trade. They hold events called plant swaps that we initially mistook for biological warfare exchanges. But most importantly, MOP interjected, they have taught us something about perspective. What we saw as deadly threats, they see as companions. What we classified as biological hazards, they call houseplants. Their ability to adapt and form bonds with their environment is remarkable. Kree gently touched one of their succulent's leaves, causing several council members to cover their eyes in fear. I propose that we establish a new diplomatic initiative, one that helps us understand not just humanity's relationship with plants, but their unique way of viewing their world. And, MOP added, perhaps we could learn from their example. After all, any species that can convince a Venus flytrap to become an office decoration clearly has much to teach us about adaptation and coexistence. The council chambers erupted in discussion. Finally, the head of the council raised all 4 hands for silence. Ambassador Kree, they said gravely, are you suggesting we should consider keeping plants ourselves? Kree looked down at their small succulent, remembering how terrified they had been just a month ago. I suggest we start small, perhaps with air plants. They don't even need soil, which makes them 47% less terrifying. The council chamber buzzed with nervous but excited chatter. In the back, someone was already taking notes on safe plants for beginners. Though, Kree added quickly, I recommend we wait before visiting something called a botanical garden. And nobody mentioned the redwood forests yet. Some things are best learned gradually. As the council meeting concluded, Kree carefully picked up their succulent. Come along, Spike, they said quietly, then looked around to make sure nobody had heard them talking to a plant. But several other council members were already looking thoughtfully at the small potted plants that humans had placed around the building for decoration. One was even heard asking about proper watering techniques. The great plant revolution of the Galactic Council had begun, though perhaps they would wait a while before trying cacti.